Yo, what's good with you? Back in black with another Enlisted video. I'm sure most of you guys know that playing as the Japanese is quite the drag, specifically in the Pacific campaign, because they're not in any other campaign. But more often than not, they're going to be defending as they were in real life. And as a lot of people know, defending against Americans attacking an island from multiple sides is a very hard thing to do. So what I wanted to do was give you guys some tips and tricks as far as playing defense as the Japanese. And then hopefully we can bring a little more balance to the campaign. I will say that just recently they released a new battle pass update and it reset everybody's rank, and as soon as they did that, I started losing a lot more games as the Americans. And I don't know if it was because I don't have as many marshals on my team since I got my rank reset and I have to go all the way back up and I'm playing with a bunch of scrubs and privates, or I don't know what the deal is. But that didn't really deter me from trying to make this video, because I still feel like the Japanese are underpowered, maybe not severely, but at least as far as capabilities is concerned. So you have to really be on your A game and know what you're doing if you're going to play defense and get a lot of victories and a high win percentage as the Japanese. So yeah, let's get right into the first set of tips and tricks. My first piece of advice to you if you want to main the Japanese in the Pacific campaign is that you really want to focus on playing the long game. Specifically what I mean by that is that you want to put a lot of distance between you and the Americans. My reason for that is that the Japanese, primarily they specialize in bolt action rifles. They do have semi-automatics and they do have some machine guns, and yes, they do have machine guns, but I find that one, the rate of fire is typically lower on their submachine guns and machine guns in comparison to the Americans, and two, I find that specifically bolt action rifles are super effective in all campaigns. So, and since you're playing defense anyways, you don't necessarily have to go out of your way to make combat a close quarters kind of thing. So if you can keep a good amount of distance between you and the Americans and really focus on shredding them down with your bolt action rifles, maybe you can have a whole rifleman squad. It's pretty effective in my personal opinion. I will say that when I play the Americans and I go up against any competent type of Japanese players, as long as you can hit your shots, which is the whole essence of a bolt action rifle, you can put down an entire American squad pretty fast. It's typically in the close range engagements where they start to show that they really have the upper hand. And even at medium and long range, I will say, because they do have the BAR and the M1 Garand. The BAR is typically like an assault rifle for them, and the M1 Garand is a super long range semi-automatic 1 to 2 hit type of gun. So again, in a sense, you're kind of outmatched, especially at mid to close range. So like I said, you just want to keep a lot of distance between you and them. The more you can do that, the more effectively you can cut them down before they start getting close to you and using their Thompsons and M1 carbines and bars and whatnot. Tip number 2 is that the same way you want to play the long game with your infantry, you more than likely want to do the same thing with your vehicles. And I hate that I have to say that, because personally, when I'm going up against a tanker that likes to sit in the back of the map and shred infantry down from super far away, it's super annoying to deal with. But quite frankly, with all the elevation differences and vegetation that is prevalent in the Pacific campaign, tanks aren't necessarily how should I say, in a good spot, as opposed to the kind of spot that they would be in if it was Normandy or Tunisia or Moscow. It's very hard to find a visual of the enemy, and even then, if you find one, it's going to be hard to find all of them, because everybody's wearing camouflage and spread out and running through the bushes and whatnot. So if you are going to get a tank, it's better to sit kind of far back with that and find a good vantage point or angle that the enemy is attacking from, and then you can shred them down that way, which is really the only good way to support your infantry if you're playing defense. The bad thing about the Japanese tanks is that the armor isn't very thick, and if you do have the premium tank that does have pretty thick armor, it's going to move super slow and be super big and cumbersome, easy to see, easy to flank. So more often than not, I find that, you know, Americans will run up on the side and, you know, play some TNT or what have you on Kachi or whatever it's called, the premium tank, and blow that up. So I don't really find that tank to be as effective as, you know, it was portrayed to be, which I guess it wasn't really effective in real life. But long story short, you kind of want to sit in the back with the Japanese tanks and kind of do your damage that way. Hopefully you can spot the American SPAAs before they spot you, because you know, as far as like how easy it is to take the tank out, they're on an even playing field. It's just a matter of whoever sees who's first, if that makes any sense. So play back with the tanks, use your binoculars, find good vantage points, and make sure you're asking for coordinates if your team isn't already giving it to you, which more than likely they're not, because we all know how randoms are in this game. My third piece of information for anybody who is looking to get more out of their defensive efforts when playing as the Japanese is that when you are fighting on point, you want to make it as much of a point of emphasis as possible to spread out. The reason being is because in the introduction of the Pacific campaign, they made updates to capture points that made them, how you say, wider than they originally were. So whereas before, you know, a month or two ago, you would be fighting on a point that is approximately like what, maybe 10-15 meters, the points that you will come across in the Pacific campaign will be at least 30 to 40 meters in diameter, which, you know, isn't necessarily like the worst thing in the world, because it gives the attackers a little more flexibility as far as flanking is concerned. But in the same respect that you make it easier for the attackers to complete their objective because the capture point is wider, you make it harder for the defenders to defend that point unless they know exactly what they are doing. The reason that it's so important to spread out as a defender and if you're fighting on the point is because since the diameter of the circle is so much larger and the attackers get the opportunity to take advantage of that, why shouldn't you do the same thing as a defender? I know it's kind of a habit, or, you know, if you're not really thinking about it, you could just think like, oh, I'll just, you know, sit on the center of the point. But that makes it really hard for you again as a defender, because what the allies will do, and any team in general, what they will do is they will call in bombing runs and they will call in artillery strikes, specifically on the middle of the point, which will shred your entire team and your squad, and we don't want that. So in a sense, it does make it easier for the attackers to attack, but it makes it easier for the defenders to avoid artillery and bombing runs as well. Subsequently, with spreading out on the point, another thing that I would like to emphasize as a defender, which you should be doing, is that you should use your engineer as much as possible, which I know sounds like a given, but quite frankly, I still don't see it as often as I should. It is super effective to build structures like sandbags, barbed wire, specifically on the outside ring of the point. This will deter the enemy bots from flooding your zone and make it easier for them to pick off, because they'll have to move either to the left or the right of where they originally intended to go, and it blocks off doorways. So I do also want to emphasize that if your point, or if the point you're defending currently is on a building, you should really try to reinforce that building as much as possible. Even if one person on your team is going out of his way to build rally points, ammo boxes, and strategic emplacements to help you defend, that can really save your ass. So I want you guys to just imagine if you get 2, 3, or even 4 people on your team who go out of their way to use their engineer as much as possible. The biggest tools that I would recommend again is the barbed wire, as it forces the AI and even the players to move in a different direction than they, you know, intended originally, especially if they're trying to climb through windows or, you know, go on your left or right flank. If you put barbed wire on at least one of your flanks, that eliminates one of the options, which makes playing defense a lot easier overall. Another point that I wanted to make is that I know when you typically hear the word defense, you think to yourself that you should sit in one spot or sit on the point. But one of the things that I would really recommend specifically in this campaign is that you should really try your best to meet the enemy halfway. And what I mean by that is that you want to push in front of your defensive objective, not necessarily push right to the edge of it and try to defend from that point. Again, because the capture points are larger and because the playing field is so wide and Enlisted, specifically in this campaign, the enemy has a lot of opportunity to flank either left or right on, you know, super wide angles that you probably wouldn't even expect unless you were, you know, pulling up your map and looking at it actively in the middle of a match. But I'm pretty sure, you know, most people don't do that, nor do they really think about it. So what I would recommend, instead of sitting on the point and trying to play defense that way, try to push out in front of it and meet the enemy halfway before they even have an opportunity to actually start, you know, capturing, you know, filling up the little meter or whatever they have to do to capture the point. If you can do that, not only will you bleed their tickets more, but you will actually, you know, find out where their rally points are. And if you can do that and prevent them from even getting a flank going in the first place, again, that will make defense that much easier to play. Just some quick fire tips that I also wanted to throw in there, but not make it a whole nother tip in itself. The Type 100, or I guess the paratrooper SMG, you really want to aim high with that. You also want to aim high with all Japanese submachine guns in general. The Type Hui, the Japanese semi-automatic rifle, that gun is horrible unless you're using it at medium to close range. And also with that gun as well, you want to try to hit them in the upper chest or the neck or the head area. I've noticed that's the only way to put somebody down in one shot. Otherwise, you're going to be taking, you know, 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 shots sometimes, depending on how far they are, to actually down somebody with this gun. And I think that's super disappointing considering the fact that there's only 5 bullets in the clip. So unless you're going to spend a gold order on that 10-round magazine version of it that just came out, then yeah, definitely would recommend trying to aim high with the Type A rifle. Shoot them in the chest, you know, neck, shoulders, head. That area is the only way to make that gun any type of effective, unless you're going to be reloading every 5 seconds. Other than that, that's pretty much all I could think of for this video. I do appreciate you guys for watching. If you appreciate it, or, you know, learn something new, or just enjoyed the video generally speaking, make sure you aim for that like button and shoot that subscribe button as well. It'll help you with your skill-based matchmaking, and it'll help you find better teammates. Thank you guys again for watching. I hope you guys have a lovely day. Black Guy out.